The Pac-12 championship game could be decided, or will it? Potential Big 12 stumbling blocks, and where will the upset line? Do any of us have the guts to pick it in the race for the ribeye? This is the College Game Day Podcast for Friday, November 18th. Rece Davis, Pete Thamel, and Bill Connelly, who we have distracted from following soccer and the World Cup, where they do not pick up the ball, tuck it with 5 points of pressure, lower their shoulder, and get first downs. But Bill likes it anyway. So, Bill, Pete and I, if Pete were going to fill out a soccer pool, which would not be against any ethical standards, who should he go? Who should he go with in the World Cup?
Well, I mean, if it's just a free for all and you get to pick whoever you want and there are no odds or prices involved, then I mean, the favorites are Brazil and Argentina for a reason. I think. It's one of those, like, any of this is going to be, pick the field over one team. And so it's nothing crazy, but it's still, I really like Argentina, especially. I think they've got, Brazil's pretty old in defense, and Argentina's got really lovely depth, and some guy named Messi up front who can still kick a ball reasonably well. So I think they're probably the best combination of, talent and form and health and all this other stuff. So I like Argentina.
Who's the best price, Bill? Like in horse racing, like you never want to bet on the 1-to-1. You want the 8-to-1 that like is a little frisky, that's got a shot. Who's the best price?
Honestly, like the prices are pretty good. I think overall, I would still probably say Argentina, but that's boring. So okay. If we go further down, I like, Spain has a great identity. Okay. They know exactly what they want to do. They're like at plus 750 or something like that. So decent odds. They can't score. Like they don't have a finisher, which is it was a problem for them in the Euros. And
they're Iowa.
Is
that it?
They basically, you will never have the ball in a threatening area, but they don't know what to do when they have the ball in a threatening area either. So that's not bad.
Okay. All right. So all right. And then I promise, because we got a lot of fans saying it. So we've identified who Iowa is. So who's North Carolina? All offense, no defense.
I don't even though Netherlands has a couple of very good center backs, they do the whole high risk, high line kind of stuff that usually when it doesn't work, you give up 3 goals, even if you have the best defenders in the world. So that feels pretty, they can score on anybody and they want to score on anybody. But Germany.
Chiswick.
Germany and Netherlands are both Chiswick-esque at times in their transition defense. So
don't you think for a second, Bill, as our friendship has evolved over these Friday appearances, that I haven't noticed you sneaking in Lovely into your football columns too. That's a very soccer term.
I long ago, I don't remember how many years, but just because I've been watching a lot of it was Champions League season, I guess. I said the word pitch instead of field just to kind of squeeze it in there and to enjoy it myself. So many people got so mad. Yeah, and I have not done that since.
Who's App State, Bill? Like, who's the lovable underdog who like should take on the world?
You got quite a few of those.
Okay,
we do not lack. All
right.
Ghana has used the transfer portal pretty well.
All right,
the last couple.
There we go. Some NIL in Ghana.
Some old relatives who suddenly qualified them for the team. No, they seriously have. They've added a couple of very talented players recently, and they're kind of fun. I really like. Let's see, Canada's fast, and their goalkeeper wears sweatpants. That's kind of fun.
I ain't betting on Canada.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll break out the sweatpants for Qatar. That might be. He might have regular attire there, but they're interesting. Plenty of Switzerland's very fun and interesting, very physical and kind of cranky. So that's always fun. Senegal's fun. There are a lot of good underdogs in this tournament.
Oh, okay. And so real quickly, one last, but I'm going to turn it the other way now.
Uh-oh.
Which college football coach is Ted Lasso?
I mean, no, Mike Leach is too obvious, but he's also kind of cranky.
But he knows what he's doing schematically.
Yeah.
Mike does. And also perfecting his cough.
Yeah, he had a great, by the way, the halftime interview with Molly McGrath last week was amazing. Was one of his better.
There's a great story on her that recounted that on The Athletic today.
On The Athletic, yeah.
Oh,
it was really well done.
Yeah, it was great.
No,
it was great.
Okay.
Something. All right.
It's PJ Fleck is Ted Lasso.
Oh, but I think
I would have said Will Healy, but he got sacked too. So.
Well, he did get sacked. I hate to pile on poor Will Healy, but I don't remember if I've told this story in the podcast or not before, but Charlotte was awful. They were the opposite of lovely. They were ugly. And then they go the next week after Will gets fired, who I think everybody likes Will, thought he was a good coach. Certainly we had him on game day last year after they beat Duke, and things seemed to be going that way. And I texted Pete when they were just blasting Rice the next game. And I said, did they really hate Will Healy that much? Or
he's a really likable guy too.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it was confounding.
I was going to say, or if they loved him and they were angry that he got, I'm not saying it, he got fired. Although I do like it when they say sacked on Monty Python, The Quest of the Holy Grail. But so maybe I can say it. But if they did like him, well, then why didn't you guys start doing that earlier? But anyway, so.
Yeah, that boost didn't last very long, though. They kind of fell back apart pretty quick after that.
Yeah, they did. Well, let's make some picks, gentlemen, as we head into this weekend before rivalry weekend with a few good rivalry games on the docket as well. Taylor, what do you have for us?
Gentlemen, it is the Race for the Ribeye week 12. The stakes are stakes as they have been every week. And last week, everyone went 6-4. So the best week for everyone. And I mean, I was pretty impressed with you guys. And then we have a tight race here. So Bill, he has 47 correct selections. Rece has 45, and
out of
Pete
who
has
knows
44.
how many.
We don't have. Nah, don't worry about it.
No, you know what? No, I'm gonna tell him, Taylor. You sent it to me in an email, so I'm looking right now. I'm gonna tell the people because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of it. I mean,
it just shows we're due if people are actually going to bet on these picks.
Okay, Bill is 9 games under 500. I'm 13 games under 500, and so is Pete with a push. But I have one more correct pick than Pete does. Also, one more loss. So, anyway,
I like to think of myself as 0 games.
Before we start here, I have to bring
something up with Taylor. So, I happened to be looking around on Apple Podcasts last night, and there was a review that went right at you, Taylor.
Oh no!
It starkly criticized the mooing between the bumps. It was oddly specific. Usually the reviews just say Thamel sucks, whatever.
Why would you
get that Matt Dork Connelly off there? No, it was really interesting because the volume of the mooing, I guess, was like was so loud. But the review also said I talk too much. So I want to be clear. It's probably pretty spot on.
It's a podcast.
Anyway, we all do. I mean the subtitle of this podcast is talkative and undisciplined. I mean,
we hold up to that.
No, come on.
Yes. So the volume of the moo is of much consternation by it's probably the same LSU.
Make it louder.
Hate Rece's yes.
back in the day,
bring it up.
Back in the day, they had this Sports Center anchor bracket, and you vote, and then you'd say mean things about people. and my wife and my son, who was then 7 or 8 years old, maybe something like that. They were looking at it, and it really angered them, especially, I've angered both of them a lot. And I was like, just don't. I was like, it's a lot like going to a restaurant and then going home after a good meal. Now, you might say on the way out the door, that was a nice meal. Thank you for the service. That was great, whatever. But rarely do you get home and call the restaurant back and say, I just wanted to tell you again, that was fantastic. I loved that meal. But now if you went and if you found, like a nail in your baked potato, or, a piece of hair, or something like that, a glob of a mustache, in your green beans, well, then you're probably going to try to appeal to a higher authority, and you're going to, rip somebody. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. And also because I don't like it. So I don't ever, who likes it? Oh, some do. David Pollack kind of does. He likes it a little bit. He
we want to stir the pot a little. That's all. I thought it was interesting. We need Taylor to stay on point. So
yeah, Taylor, don't worry about the haters.
I appreciate these valuable life lessons you all are imparting on me.
He's a Maryland fan, so he's used to adversity.
That is true.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you've got some. You've cost me some this year too, and some different things. All right, let's. Yeah. No. Okay. Go Terps.
Go Terps. Illinois heading to Michigan. Michigan an 18-point favorite. Let's go Rece, Pete, Bill.
Bill, I said this on Wednesday. I really, really like Michigan as a team. I think Michigan can beat Ohio State. I'll favor them to, but I think they can. That's how I think they're really good. And it's not that I think Illinois is great. They're certainly not playing their best ball right now, but with their defense and the way both teams play and the limited possessions, look, Michigan could beat them 49-7. Sure, they could. But I'm going to take the 18 points. I don't think Illinois has a chance in the world to win the game, even with Michigan playing Ohio State next week. It's too many points for my blood for the style of both teams. So I'm going to take Illinois in the points.
So I'm up next here, and Bill, Rece and I did discuss this on the Wednesday podcast,
which I'm sure you listened to, while you were watching like World Cup warm-up matchups on grainy feeds from Ghana.
Just old flashback games, 2018, studying those again. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Tactical roots. I would think that if I was to wager on this game, so I'm going to take Illinois. If I were to wager on this game, I would watch very closely the status of running back Chase Brown. Brett Bielema said earlier this week he's trending in the right direction. But also, if I was Brett Bielema, I would not say, hey, Chase Brown, the best running back in the country, is going to be out, so they can prepare differently. So that is an ongoing saga that you should pay attention to if you are indeed going to invest in the outcome of this game.
Well, first of all, that is very good to hear, because after he got hurt on the sideline, there were people around him. It was like they were trying not to cry. Like it was very somber when he was sitting over there in pain on the sideline. But I think what we saw the last couple of weeks is if Illinois can't derive a solid advantage from Chase Brown, just in pure yardage and key yardage and everything else, they have no way to generate an advantage. If you can match what Chase Brown does. I'm guessing Michigan with Corum and whoever else they decide to throw out there can match what Chase Brown does, even if it's 100%. Yeah, I don't see any advantages Illinois has in this game at this point. It could very well stay under the line just because Michigan doesn't really care. Like they'll just continue to grind. We saw that last week. Corum should have never had 29 touches against Nebraska last week. That was a little careless, I thought, but he's going to get touches and they're going to win. And I'm going to go ahead and pick Michigan just to be different, even though I should be running out the clock and making as many picks unanimous as possible. I feel like this one could very easily be 24-27, even in low possessions. I don't think Illinois has an advantage here.
Hey, thanks you guys for the pigeon some bread, Bill. We appreciate it.
You guys probably know this, but I think we've come up, and I had Marissa Dowling, our great researcher, confirm this when I saw it. Here is a relatively concise way to figure out the Big Ten West right now. And all of it assumes, the reason I bring it up is because we're on this game. All of it assuming an Illinois loss, right, which is probably dangerous, but just say Illinois loses to Michigan in Ann Arbor as everyone expects. If that happens, then the Iowa-Minnesota game, Floyd of Rosedale controls everything. If Iowa wins, Iowa controls their destiny or their fate, as much as destiny can be controlled, but that's a different podcast discussion for a different day. If Minnesota beats Iowa, then it falls to Purdue to be in charge of the division. So that's fairly concise.
Is there a quiz?
Iowa?
No, there's no Iowa. How about everybody's looking forward to that Iowa, either rematch, Iowa, Michigan, or Iowa, Ohio State.
Iowa's not looking forward to that. Iowa doesn't want any part of that. They're just going to win the division out of spite.
All right, next game here. TCU, a 2.5-point favorite at Baylor. Love a rivalry game with some stakes that aren't stakes. Let's go Pete, Bill, Rece.
So I've been a little bit of a TCU skeptic. I picked Texas last week, which seemed foolish since they still haven't gained a yard on offense to now. So, and again, Baylor will be a difficult place to play. It'll be as hostile an environment as one can have at 11 a.m. in Waco. But I just feel like at this point, I am convinced on TCU. I feel like the 3-3-5 can slow down Baylor enough up front. And I feel like their offense can move the ball on a Baylor defense that's been a bit fitful in how they've played this year. So that's a low price. And I think there's going to be some steam out of Baylor's fan base, just considering how There's this season just hasn't gone up to what they thought. And look, until last week, there were championship aspirations there that are not completely extinguished, but look pretty dim. So I think the Horned Frogs keep rolling. I am a skeptic no longer.
Yeah, I until last week, this did seem to be trending towards a pretty even battle. Baylor had rebounded nicely. They'd won 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. The OU game was pretty turnover driven, but they still won it. Then last week, TCU crashed on one side of the ball and Baylor crashed on both sides of the ball. And, I think this could still be one of those bounce back situations. The crowd's going to be into it. Like you said, Blake, I just need to see something from Blake Shapen. Last 2 games, his pass rating's been under 100. He's 36 for 61, which isn't horrible, but for only 335 yards, 3 picks, no touchdowns, just not offering anything to there. And Baylor's becoming very one note on offense. And so, I kind of want to see a really fun environment, but I trust TCU way more in this game. And, it's 2.5. So you're basically picking the money line at this point. And I'm very much leaning TCU in that regard.
Yeah, I'm on TCU as well. I do expect them to, because they have had games that started slowly, even away from a situation like this one. That was a big emotional expenditure in Austin. 7.5-point dog, everybody doubting them, and just the fact that it's Texas. Now everybody in the conference, fairly or unfairly, seems to have a fairly high level of disdain for all things Baylor. But I don't think it's the same as opposed to when it's Texas and that burnt orange and sort of ubiquitous feel across the state that they're the big brother and you're the little one always being pushed back into the corner. That's how Gary Patterson built TCU, and then Sonny Dykes seemed to capitalize on that feeling and emotion to get his defense to play its best game of the season by far. So I think TCU will come out flat. I think they will look like they're in danger for a while, but I think they have more capabilities to make game-winning plays and big plays, and will win the game and will cover the team that has the best record against the spread in all of college football this year. TCU will cover.
That's a good stat. I didn't know that.
We were talking Apple Podcast reviews a moment ago, and I happened to pull them up. And there's a review labeled UConn in all caps. It is 1 star, and it says Pete talked about UConn and didn't mention New England United. Come on, Pete. This is from August 29th, and we're still talking about UConn in November here. They beat Liberty last week. They're going Army. Army a 10-point favorite. Army kind of ungood this year. Kind of a weird line. Let's go, yeah. Bill, Rece, Pete.
So I like, kind of tracking trends as I'm going through here and trying to figure games out. Who's been exceeding projections lately, who hasn't. Connecticut has now exceeded projections for 7 straight weeks. Not bad. That's by an average of 15 points a game. So they early in the season, they were a little competitive against Utah State, but it turned out Utah State stunk. Getting blown out by Syracuse maybe wasn't as bad as it seemed at the time, and Michigan, of course. But once the schedule eased up just a little bit, like they have really, really found some things out. Like this isn't an amazing team. I'm not going to pretend, but they are continuing to move up, and that's pretty exciting. Problem is Army has also kind of rebounded a little bit, and they've also exceeded expectations or projections for 4 straight games, even though they've lost 2 of them. And I feel like at this point Army needs this one more. They're 3-6, winnable games down the stretch here. They could still get to 6-6. UConn just won their bowl game. Basically, they got to 6, and I feel like my numbers lean slightly toward Army, and that's enough for me. I'll lean on the side of the numbers here and the team that has more to play for.
And so you're taking them to cover the 10?
I'll take them. I figure 13-14 is the most likely here.
Okay. Loyal listeners of this First Year Podcast know what a big fan I am of Jeff Monken. And I know the record this year is probably not going to grant him a move in this coaching cycle. One of these days, somebody's going to get smart and they're going to hire him. And probably the same could be said for Jim Mora. But I think that's especially true for Jeff. I don't think this is his best Army team, though they are improving. They should have beaten Troy Saturday, missed a field goal late that would have won the game. Troy's a really good team, 8-2. UConn's rush defense, just okay. Gave up a bunch of yards to Liberty. But I just can't. I can't lay 10 with this brave old Army team. So I think Army wins the game at home. And maybe they do run wild. And I think you're spot on, Bill, with UConn not being able to get to that same emotional pitch after beating Liberty last week. But I'm going to take the 10 on the road and figure that Army wins, but by less than the number.
So to respond
4 months later to the Apple Podcast review, New England United was a gag on our old podcast that was the theory that UMass and UConn should combine like a soccer team and become New England United. And we had a home stadium for them in Holyoke, Mass, which is kind of like on the border between Storrs and Amherst. And it was kind of a whole bit, especially as both those teams really struggled the last few years. So that said, I actually went on my app when I saw Taylor's email. Not that I don't trust Taylor. And I was like, wait, is UConn favored by 10 or is Army favored by 10? So because it just seemed off-putting that this 3-6 Army team, who hasn't been able to score and scored 9 points against Troy last week, would be favored by double digits against the mighty Huskies. My greatest accomplishment in my short tenure at ESPN was writing that Jim Mora's house was haunted. Like that is sources close to the Ghostbusters had confirmed it to me this summer. So my heart is in Storrs with all of the extraterrestrial beings haunting Jim Mora's house. I will say this: Zion Turner, the UConn quarterback, has been a revelation. He was at St. Thomas Aquinas and came through. I just think they'll be able to score some points, and Army will probably be able to run on that UConn defense. My last thought on UConn football, and I've already had too many, is that like Jim Mora is the defensive coordinator basically, and like Jim Mora knows what he's doing. And I think that's been a big part of this UConn revival. Nick Charlton OC has been great, but like Jim Mora can coordinate a defense. He's done it at quite a few levels in quite a few high-end ways. And usually a coach like Mora has started Army practice periods in the spring and everything. So I think the old Huskies will be ready. And I can't promise they'll win, but the only reason I would pick Army in this game is it's such a preposterous line. So it just seemed off-putting to me.
Into the thick of the 4-3 Big Ten West logjam we go. Iowa heading to Minnesota. Minnesota 3-point favorite at home. Let's go Rece, Pete, Bill.
This is a great trophy game, men. Floyd of Rosedale, the prized pig that was offered up to tamp down the hostilities and the intensity between these two rivals in the 30s. Floyd was offered up by the Minnesota governor back in the day and then was won. It was named after Floyd Olson, the Minnesota governor, and he has buried the actual pig about at the midway point between the two campuses. They have the big trophy now that they play for that goes back and forth. I should know better than to go against Iowa as well as they've played on defense. I mean, they just won a game where they got 146 yards of offense. I mean, that seems impossible to me. Minnesota has been a bit of a disappointment, candidly, to me, relative to what I expected for them. And yet, PJ Fleck's team is still 7-3. They've got to have a lot of things go just right for them to be the ones to represent the Big Ten West. Got Mohamed Ibrahim, who will test that great Iowa defense. He's got 18 rushing touchdowns, and that's number one in the country. Iowa has allowed a grand total of 3 rushing touchdowns all season. That's tied with Georgia for the fewest in the nation. My gut tells me to pick Iowa, but I'm going to go against it because I don't know that you can keep going to that well. I know defense travels and all of that, but I'm going to go with Minnesota. I'm going to go with Fleck and the Gophers to cover the small spread and get the win.
Is it me?
Yeah.
So Iowa has been PJ Fleck's bugaboo.
The Hawkeyes have won 7 straight in this series. I think we all remember Kirk Ferentz burning those timeouts right into Fleck's soul a couple of years back in one of like the great petty. And it was so great because it was from Kirk Ferentz, who you would never think would be that petty. and he certainly went like sportsmanship right out the window. So I'm all for tension and pettiness. So it was a remarkable moment. So needless to say, these are two programs that don't like each other, and the fact that they'll be playing on a frigid day in Minneapolis, just I think intensifies the spite a little bit. Investors should note the health of Tanner Morgan. Ethan Kaliakmanis, and one of my defining memories from this, my first season on Game Day, is walking around Eugene, Oregon at 4:30 in the morning saying Kaliakmanis out loud with Pat McAfee, because we were all learning how to pronounce it because he was making his first start that day. He's played pretty well, giving them a little spark. Tanner Morgan's obviously been a consummate program guy, no mistake guy, but Kaliakmanis is the future there. So the fate of who will start will certainly be something to watch before investments happen. But I'm going to take the Gophers. I feel like they get over the Schneid. I just feel like relying on defense and special teams in a formula to win a game, although they've been wildly successful with it, is just a difficult lifestyle. Now, it's certainly been a trend, and if they do it this weekend, it's going to be a lifestyle. But I do think under Fleck, Minnesota has always been very sound, and they have not beaten themselves. And so I feel like they can use Ibrahim and others to figure out a way to outgrind Iowa and get a win. And Minnesota's defense is top 10 in the country too. Joe Raji's done a really nice job, and probably a little underappreciated in the grand scheme.
Yeah, somebody asked me during Saturday's game, right after the just atrocious Iowa-Wisconsin game ended. Like every time I flip over there, I watch two plays and I groan and I find another game to watch for a little bit. But somebody they asked, 2.1 yards per play for Iowa in that game. Like what are the dumbest wins? Who can top 2.1 yards per play in a win of 2 touchdowns or more? And so I looked it up in our True Media tool. You have to go back to 2011. Florida State beat Florida while averaging 1.6 yards per play. Stupid Muschamp game, basically. 2007 Notre Dame beat.
Was it Bowden 11?
No.
I think
that was Jimbo.
I think that's Jimbo. I think.
Yeah.
Because they won the title
in 13.
Yeah.
So
2 years.
So that was bad. Then you got 2007 Notre Dame beating UCLA, Carl Durrell's UCLA, averaging 2.1 yards per play. And Iowa was third. That was going back to, I think, 2007. Only 3 teams have managed that. You had that ridiculous Missouri blowout win over Florida where they averaged 2.4, and Marcus Murphy just scored a bunch of return touchdowns and everything. That was 2.4, and somehow Iowa came under that one. So this is, even for Iowa, last week was kind of newfound territory. And the idea of picking against that, especially against a team they beat every single year, like that, just Kirk Ferentz does not lose to PJ Fleck. It feels very dumb to pick against that. But I want to become the change I want to see in the world here. And I'm going to pick Minnesota.
Oh no. Congratulations, Iowa.
I know. But again, it helps me when we're unanimous anyway. So that's fine. No, I just, Ibrahim is the only offensive weapon in this game at this point. And, if they throw a bunch of interceptions, as Iowa is want to force, then, great. Iowa's going to win again. But if Minnesota just avoids turnovers and hands the ball off a lot, they'll win. And that's what I'm going to go for. I don't want to hand this division to Iowa just yet.
Are there prop bet for punt over unders?
Oh man. Well, and the other thing is they go so slow. Like they're going to be 8 possessions for each team in this game, and there'll be 15 punts.
I want to see what the weather's going to be there Saturday. In part because I'm flying through there on Friday to go to Bozeman, so I don't want to get stuck. But that game deserves snow, right? It deserves that's really the only way to properly celebrate that game. So it is right now a balmy 32 in the Twin Cities. Saturday, we have
this is a nice range, a low of 11 and a high of 20. Partly sunny.
That fits.
That's about right. That's about right. I wish there were a snowflake or 2 there, but can't win them all.
We've got 2 monster games out west in the Pac-12. The first one here, USC, a 2.5 point favorite, heading across town to UCLA. They're pulling the tarps up, fellas. I think that allows 17,000 more people into the Rose Bowl. So exciting stuff for Chip Kelly and the Bruins. Let's do Pete, Bill, Rece for this one.
Yeah, UCLA's PR people spamming everybody that we actually sold out was one of my favorite dark highlights of the week. Hey, more people are going to come than the Bowling Green game and the South Alabama game. Interesting game because like there's sort of reasons for resounding skepticism about both of these teams. UCLA's defensive no-show against USC. Bill McGovern, their defensive coordinator, hasn't actually coached the past few games. It appears to be some type of personal health issue from what's been sort of vaguely reported out there. So, and look, Bill McGovern's a very good veteran defensive coordinator. He's been in the NFL for a long time, and UCLA's defense has without their play caller, declined a little bit. In that stead, Arizona obviously had their way with them on Saturday night. USC's defense, I called around about Oregon the other day for some stuff for game day and sort of caught some shrapnel from coaches who were like, and USC's defense stinks too. They're worse than Oregon. Like there were people are volunteering like the stuff like that. It makes you think there is a vulnerability there. I am going to take the Trojans anyway, because I just don't trust UCLA's defense. And I just think that the dynamism of Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, it appears like USC is getting healthy again. They had some key guys out here and there, but like, let's go like full rip 52-42 on this game. Like there will be nobody stopping anybody. And I don't know what the over under is, but like that, I think this will be sort of like your generation stereotypical Pac-12 up and down, each quarterback's going to have 50 attempts. Like this thing's going to rip and run. So I hope for a fun one in the Rose Bowl, but I am not going to bet against Caleb Williams the way UCLA's defenses look lately.
Yeah. The over under is like 76, mid 70s at least. And I mean, of course it
same
is.
as Iowa, Minnesota, right? Bill?
Of course. Yeah. If Iowa and Minnesota played 4 times, no, I had to write about this game for my Friday preview, and I don't think I found a single defensive advantage just at all for either team. UCLA prevents big plays better. USC is a little better in the red zone. USC is a little more likely to force a turnover, though that was a big string of kind of good fortune early on, and it's evened out since. I got nothing. It really is going to be, this is like previewing the UCLA Oregon game a few weeks ago. Any stop's a great stop. Any forced field goal is an absolute win. It's a service break, however we want to describe it. So this feels very even. Obviously, the last impression we got of UCLA was the worst one. The offense also failed a couple of times. You never want to. The offense still had a ton of yards and 28 points and all that. So the defense was more to blame, but the offense kind of blinked a couple times and they let one go that they shouldn't have. But I still see a really, really even game on paper. So I'll take whoever's like wherever I'm given points, I'll take it, and I'll go UCLA in this one.
Let me interrupt quick, Rece, to ask Bill, what's the World Cup equivalent of this game? Because I would make it a point to watch it.
Oh, so a couple of weeks ago, I wrote about a game from 1966, like just the stats, the charting stats that we have. There's a game, North Korea versus Portugal was 5-3 Portugal. North Korea scores like 3 goals in like 20 minutes, and then Portugal steamrolls them from there and everything. But it's 5-3, and there were a ton of shots, and it was really fun to watch because neither team, there's no pressing, there's no anything. They're just running up and down the field and shooting.
I meant in this World Cup, Bill.
No, I don't think that type of soccer is played anymore at the highest level. I have to go back 60 years to get a good example there.
I expect that type of game too, but then again, I sort of expected that type of game, or at least something in that vein, in Austin last Saturday night. And I got 17-10 instead, and no offensive touchdowns for Burn Orange. Dorian Thompson-Robinson said this week that after putting a rivalry record 62 on SC last year, that he wanted to hang 60 on them again. So I like that. There's no love lost there. And the rivalry getting stoked up for the old Victory Bell, which used to actually be on a locomotive. So you gotta like that part of it. I don't know that game, even though I really, really like what Jaden DeLauro, Jacob Cowing, and Arizona has done this year in terms of improvement, that one sticks with me a little bit, especially with so much at stake for UCLA, and to get caught like that. SC didn't look great for a while against Colorado either last week. So it's not like I'm not sure that they're necessarily hitting on all cylinders in every facet of the game, but I'm going to default to more explosive, score easier. And I'm going to go with USC, though I do want to offer this caveat. It could be that missing Travis Dye is a bigger deal. Not that people didn't think it was a big deal, because they've got freshman Brown, they've got Austin Jones, who transferred from Stanford. But that may turn out to be a really, really big deal for giving them the balance on offense. So I'm taking SC. But I think this game is probably going to turn on a mistake, a big play. One little thing can swing the game in either direction. I think there will be a lot of points put up, but I'll go with SC because I think they're just a little bit better.
Last one on our board before we get to your locks. A delightful Pac-12 after dark affair, Utah at Oregon. Oregon, a 3-point favorite. Let's go Bill, Rece, Pete.
I really do hate that both of these games kind of lost at least a little bit of a luster last Saturday night, even though both results that caused that loss of luster was really fun. This one, I thought this was going to be the big gut check test for Oregon here, just in that, last two times we saw them play Utah, they were getting obliterated by halftime. They thought they were big and physical, but they just weren't really getting it done after the Ohio State game last year. And Utah finally put them in their place and then did it again a few weeks later. So this is a perfect game to just find out exactly how far Oregon's offense especially has come. The defenses here aren't amazing by any means. Oregon can't really defend the pass. Utah, strangely, their run defense has been just put awful numbers up. And that might be all that matters. Oregon trusted its run game so much last week that it went for 4th and 1 with a backup quarterback in, because they just figured they could get a yard. And I think that was the right call, even though it didn't work. That it might just be that Oregon's run game is too good and nothing else matters. But this is a test. My numbers say Oregon, and I kind of lean Oregon. And then I remember what we saw the last time these teams played, and I feel very stupid about that. But I've already picked Minnesota over Iowa, so I might as well keep the run going here and pick another game that my eyes don't really believe. I'm going Oregon.
So Autzen has obviously been a
historically tough place to play, and the notion of Oregon losing back-to-back games there is a little bit disorienting. That said, part of me still just remembers the ragdolling that took place in the trenches last year. And again, Oregon brings back, they've had a very good offensive line this year. I don't love the Ducks defense. The secondary outside of Christian Gonzalez has been pretty vulnerable. Now, it's not like Utah is going to throw it 60 times, but I figure if there's some carryover advantage on the interior and there's some vulnerabilities on the exterior, I'm going to go with the Utes until there's empirical evidence that shows otherwise. So, and I do want to disagree with Bill because I don't want to pay for a steak.
I was going back and forth basically on those two premises. Last year, Utah was just too much man for them, just too tough. Yep. Oregon stepped back from the punch in the face. You got to think that they'll respond both to that. A lot of guys were, around, even though I know there's some new guys on the team, but a lot of guys were around for that. And the disappointing loss in a big rivalry game to Washington last week and another home game. And really, this is the game that will, it will separate Oregon's season, obviously, depending on what happens against Beeve. But this will largely separate them as to whether they have just a good season, Dan Lanning's first year, or whether it's an exceptional one. And that said, I don't think Utah, well, in fact, I know Utah hasn't lived up to what I expected them to be. But they're still really good, and they're still physical. And while they might not throw it 60 times, they might throw it to the tight end 48 times. So I think I'm going to go with Utah. I'm a little scared of the back-to-back Autzen Stadium loss thing, but I'm going to go with Utah because when in doubt, go with the team that is tough. I think Oregon's pretty tough, but are they as tough as Utah? We'll find out Saturday night. But right now, I'm gonna go with the Utes.
All right, fellas, let's close it down with your locks. Let's go, Bill, Pete, Rece.
This is really funny. Like I went 6-4 in these picks, and then in my column on last Friday, where I get to pick the games and should always do better, went 1-4. So I'm full of confidence right now after something like that happens. There's not a slam dunk here. Everybody at this point in the season has given us just giant false impressions and this and that. And the last 3 weeks, Kansas State has looked like a top 5 team, a barely top 50 team, and a top 5 team. And West Virginia's kind of been all over the place too. I still kind of like Kansas State. The line's about 7.5 for Kansas State right now. And if the Kansas State from 2 weeks ago shows up, they don't hit it. Quarterbacks are all over the place. They still might try to redshirt Will Howard if Adrian Martinez can go, and it's a big mess. But whoever's in there is pretty explosive, and Will Howard's even more so, it seems. So I figure even in Morgantown, I figure Kansas State can win that one by double digits.
I'm going to when you hit this point in the season and you're looking for locks, you start to look at motivation. And you start to think, okay, who's going to be ready to go pack it in? And when I think about a team that may not be motivated, that's had a disappointing season, that's kind of sputtering in to the final weeks, I think of the beleaguered Houston Cougars. The beleaguered Houston Cougars have given up this season 36 points to Temple, 77 points to SMU, 27 to South Florida right before they fired their coach, 48 to Kansas. Now, that was back when they did have Jalen Daniels. 27 to Rece. And they've just been – that is why they have the number 123 scoring defense in the country. So – all that said, they are going to the not so friendly confines of East Carolina, and the Pirates are favored by I think 6. I gotta get this right here. I think it's 6. I don't want to start giving away points. I'm already bad enough at these picks. So I'm going to take the Pirates to run big on them and walk away with a fairly comfortable victory. ECU will be very motivated. It will, they're both 6-4. Houston's is like a miserable mess. East Carolina has lost a couple close games, should be a little better than they are. They had NC State on the ropes. They obviously lost to Navy in overtime. So if I can, if in Greenville at 2:00 on Saturday, the Pirates are -6, I am happy to take the Pirates.
I'm going to tell you which one you can count. Here's the one you can count. I'm going to give you another one, Taylor. Here's the one that counts for the lock. This time of year, the one thing you want to do is eliminate a variable, right? If you can. I know I can eliminate the variable of Georgia actually losing the game at Kentucky. So I think that's a 3-touchdown spread, maybe 22 for the Dogs. I'm going to lay them and laugh. That worked for me last week, Ohio State against Indiana. Kentucky's tough. Kentucky's not going to pack it in. They're not going to quit, but they're not equipped to stay within the number. And the only way they stay within the number last year was that they ate up the entire fourth quarter with a 22-play drive and scored for a backdoor touchdown like as time expired with 2 seconds on the clock. They held the ball like 11 and a half minutes. They're not going to do that. Georgia's going to start tuning up. People need to, I don't know why Georgia's been number one virtually all year. Nobody's paid enough attention to them. I don't think that's because they've been so efficient and so good, and then they rise up whenever they are interested and just stomp people. I think they're going to start stomping a lot of people right now, and they're going to stomp Kentucky. So I will say that's my lock. Here's the other one I just want to get in that we haven't talked about. Texas and Kansas. Right now, Texas and Kansas, that's a 9-point spread. Kansas is getting 9 at home. I want you to think about this. In 1 year's time, from when Kansas beat Texas last year to Saturday, if Kansas could win at home Saturday against Texas, in 1 year's time, they would have won 2 in a row against the Longhorns. They would have a better record than them, and they would be tied with them in the Big 12 standings and have the advantage for whatever that's worth with head-to-head. Kansas is unbeaten against the spread at home this year, and they've covered 5 straight against Texas. So I know the other one has to count. The Georgia has to count, but you heard it here first. I wonder about Texas motivation after that disappointment the other night, and I would say that Kansas is a potentially smart play on Saturday.
If you do happen to invest in that game, Jalen Daniels is working towards coming back. That could be a line swing of something pretty significant. I'm not saying he's coming back, but I'm saying it's something worth monitoring.
Always keep an eye on it. Gentlemen, best of luck to you. We'll see what maybe next week we'll talk to Bill about the new addition to Tennessee's kit. Is that the right word that you soccer people like to use with the orange headgears?
I liked our little soccer chat. I thought that was kind of fun.
Okay. All right. Well,
I mean,
glad you enjoyed that.
This time next week, there could be some cranky American soccer fans too.
USA stinks in soccer. Sorry. They just,
you do. Hey, you want me to give you a preview of something I'm wanting to get in on game day as we say goodbye on this Friday?
Yeah.
Tennessee with the new orange headgears. I prefer that headgear helmet. And I went to check to see with our friend Bill Martin at Tennessee if the Big Orange had ever worn orange headgear. As it turns out, they did, but they were leather. And I have a photograph of the orange leather headgear in the College Football Hall of Famer in it that I want to get in game day on Saturday. So there you go.
There's a tease.
That's your little bit of historical knowledge along with the origins of Floyd of Rosedale and his final resting place. We've delivered it all, or everything that we can, all except winners on Fridays on the College Game Day Podcast. For Pete Thamel and Bill Connelly, I'm Rece Davis. Please download this podcast wherever it is that you like to listen. And thank you for listening. And thanks to our great crew, Taylor and everybody back who gets this on all of the fancy interweb stuff. See you next week.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.